Hello and welcome to the first video I'll be doing about teaching people how to knit. My primary audience is boys and men. I know there are a lot of YouTube videos online where you can watch how to knit. I've noticed they're mostly, if not all, women, and so I just want to make it clear that it's alright for boys and men to knit too. And in fact, what I'm planning on doing is a series of videos where I will be showing how to do some of my own patterns, and all of them are going to be featuring things that boys and men would find cool. But this is just going to be teaching the basics of how to knit. So this will show you how to do anything that only requires knitting and purling. So I'm going to use this bright orange yarn and these blue needles because we want to have enough contrast that you can see what's going on. And I'm not going to be doing an actual pattern, I'm just going to be doing a swatch. So what we're going to do first is figure out how much of a tail we need. An easy way to do that is to get a little bit of a tail and then wrap it around your needle the number of times you think, or to how many times to get the right number of stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And that's about the size of swatch I'm going to be doing. I'll go 15, make it an even number. And so that's about how much tail I would need. So I'm going to grab it right there so I can make sure I have enough. And then I'm going to make a loop. And then I'm going to make a smaller loop and pull it through that and then pull that tight. And that's to make the slip knot. Then I'm going to put it on my right needle and I'm going to cinch it up against the needle. And I don't want this to be too tight, but I want it to be snug. Then I'm going to take my fingers like this and I'm going to grab onto the yarn, and I've got this finger gun going on, and I'm going to pull it down like that, and I'm going to pick up on this side of my thumb right here, and then I'm going to come over to where my index finger is, and I'm going to pick up right there and pull it through the loop made by my thumb there, and then I'm going to tighten it up. Now watch again, and I just pull that through, and then watch, I let it slip off my thumb and I slide my thumb down under there and I cinch it up just so it's snug. Once again, we don't want it to be too tight, otherwise it's going to make it really difficult to knit. So that's 3, 4, let's go slowly again, 5, 6. I'll try to show you from a different angle. Thumb, and then finger. Oop, I missed it. Okay. 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 8. 9, 10, 11, and you'll notice I've got it all close to the tip here. That's what you work with, is the point of your needle. You don't want anything to be too far back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. There we go. Now, I have a little bit more of a tail than I need. That's okay, I can always trim that. Now, for knitting, I'm going to get as close here as I can. So we start with the front, the needle in the front, and you always want to hold your needle kind of horizontally, and your left needle really shouldn't be moving much. You always work with your right needle. And so watch this. I put my needle in there in the front, and I push it through to the back. Now you want to be careful that your needle doesn't do that. See how it's going? That's not very well focused. See how the needle is going through the yarn there? That's not good. What you want it to do is, and see, I sometimes have to try again, you want it to be like that so that there's no yarn between the needles at this point, and I pulled that loose to make a point. Normally you're going to want to keep that tight. So when you're holding your yarn, this is the way I learned to do it. I wrap it around my pinky once so I can hold the tension. So I've got my needles in this configuration like that, and I'm going to bring the yarn around, and it's going to pull it between the needles and through, and normally you'd hear a clicky noise, but not this time. And we've got the tail in the way, so that's got to stop. Okay. And we've got the yarn going the wrong way on the needle. See, I almost created another stitch when I did that, so I had to go back and do it again. And there we go. Now this first stitch tends to be kind of loose. Don't worry about that. Just keep going, even if it gets loose, because if you try to make that tight, you'll waste all your time and you'll never get past the first stitch. So just keep going and it'll tighten on its own. See, one more time. Now you want to be very careful that you don't let any of the stitches slip off the needle before you pull it off as you're finishing your knit stitch. Each of the loops wrapped around the needle is called a stitch. It's important to understand the lingo. See, so all I'm doing right now is, this is called knitting. I'll show you purling in a second. See how I pick that up? Okay. I'm going to try to get a closer shot of this. Okay. See? Once again, and then hold it steady, and I bring it through, and I pull it off the end there. And if you need to, you can go back and re-watch some of these. I'm going to pause it now so I can finish out the row. Okay, I actually knitted a few rows there, just so you can see what happens when you do nothing but knit straight across every row. You see it kind of has this weird ribbed appearance, and this is useful. This is called garter stitch. And now I'm going to show you how to purl. So what you do for purling is it's kind of basically the opposite of knitting, where you go from the back of the stitch. Oh, I need to put this in so you can see it. So I've got my left needle there and my right needle here, and I'm going to poke it through, making sure that I don't go through the yarn itself, just through that empty space. So that there's nothing between the needle, the two needles there. See, do you see that gap? Okay, So then you take your yarn and you need to be able to see what I'm doing here. Okay, and we're going to bring it up and around the needle and pull it through. And then lift it up on the back side there and pull it off. This is called purling. P-U-R-L. Needles are a bit long for this. You can hear them sliding all over the table, and the camera's a bit short. In future videos, I hope to be able to do a better job. I'm just going to do a few of these slowly, and then once again I'm going to pause and do a few rows. Now if you were to purl straight across every row, you would also end up with a garter stitch. So what I'm going to do after I pause it is I'm going to finish purling this row, then I'm going to knit the following row, and then I'm going to purl a row, and then I'm going to knit one more row, and then I'll show you what that looks like, and that's what we call stockinette stitch. So if you ever see a pattern saying to knit something in stockinette stitch, it means knit one row, purl the other. And a lot of patterns do that. And it's called that because it's what socks look like. Now when you knit socks, you don't do it row by row, you do it round by round. And you just knit the whole time, and it gives you the classic knitted appearance. So I hope you can see here what I'm doing. If not, I'll try to do this one more slowly, and then you can always pause and go back to see exactly how I'm doing it and make sure that what you're doing matches what I'm doing. See, I'm just picking it up off the back, going in from the back side through to the front, wrapping my yarn around on the front, and then picking it up off the back side and pulling it off. One more and then I'm going to pause. See there? Wrap around, pull it through. Do you hear that click? That means that I got it good. And then going to pick it up on that back side and pull it off. Okay, we're just about done with this row. Alright, that's the end of that row. Now, what I actually did here was I did a border of garter stitch, and then in the middle here is the stockinette stitch. So what I did was I knitted on the purl row, I knitted 4, and then I purled across to the last 4, and then I knitted 4, and then on the knit row I just knit straight across. So that's what the front of stockinette looks like. You can see it's got those the classic V-shape things that you can always identify knitting by, and the color seems to be causing some issues with the image. I'm going to hold it out here and zoom in. Then on the other side, it just kind of looks kind of ugly and bumpy. So these are called purl bumps, and that's going to be an important thing in a few videos when we get into what's called shadow knitting, which is it uses the distinct nature of the knitting and purling stitches to have a hidden image in it. and it's a really cool way of doing things. So you'll note that when I get to the end of the row, so I'll have this in my right hand and my left needle there, but once the left needle is empty, what I'll do is I'll grab the needle with the work on it, and turn it around. This is called turning. So now, this is a purl row here, and watch how I do the following part. So I want to keep doing the garter border, the garter stitch border, so I'm going to knit these first 4 stitches, and then I'm going to start purling. So that's 1. I need to remember to keep it low so you can see what I'm doing. 2. 3, and 4. Now, it's very important at this point where I need to start purling, and the patterns don't tell you this. They expect you to just know this already, that you put the yarn from the back side, because when you're knitting, the yarn comes out the back side there, and bring it over to the front side before you start purling. That way you don't create extra stitches. See, if I just try to start purling like this, watch what happens. I have to bring the yarn around like that, and then when I go to pick it up on the back end, see, I've created another stitch. And sometimes you do this deliberately. The pattern will tell you to, but I don't want to do that right now. So see, I had 4, and so I should have 5 right now, but if you count the stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've created another stitch. So what do I do about that? Well, this is one way to fix a mistake, is called tatting back. So to tat back, you pick up the previous stitch that you worked and you go just in reverse. So this was a purl stitch, so I go in reverse to fix what I just did. And now if I wanted to tap back on a knit stitch for whatever reason, then I would no, that's not quite right. It's been a while since I've had to do this. Just do it in reverse. See, I'll do another one, because that one didn't show up very well. So this is the, see, and there was something wrong with that. I picked up a couple stitches there, I think. Yeah, see, I picked up a couple stitches. I made a big error right there. I don't know how I did that. But this is the one that I should have worked into. What did I do there? Anyway, so since there are the 2, watch this. I'm going to do it really slowly. And if you need help, you can always look and see where things are, how they line up. So we're going to go into there and then push it back like that, bring the yarn back around and pull the needle out, letting it slide onto there. So I'm just going to go back and do it ahead. So if you are supposed to create a stitch by doing the yarn over thing, so if I were to do a yarn over and then knit, I would create another stitch like that. See? I don't want to create another stitch at this point though, so I'm not gonna. And the way that will, so when you're looking at a pattern, K means knit, P means purl, and if it ever says YO, yo, that means yarn over. That's how you're going to be creating another stitch. If you see K2 TOG, we're not going to deal with that right now, but that means knit two together. Similarly, P2 TOG is purl two together. So if I wanted to start making some kind of pattern, what would, or while I'm purling this, like so say if the pattern said K4, P3, K2, that means knit 4, which I've done, purl 3, I just finished purling my third, K2, I take the yarn and I put it to the back in preparation to knit 2, and then P3 again. So then I take my yarn from the back around the front, that's a yarn over, and then I purl 3, ack. So what I just did there is called slipping. That's where you take the one stitch from the left needle and put it to the right needle without actually doing anything. And I did that because I am not used to working so far away from my body. But I'm having to do this far enough away that you can see what's going on. I need to get a better mount for this camera. So I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, 1, 2, 3. And then knit 4. K4 is what the paper would say, so I pass the yarn over again and knit the last 4. And then I get ready to turn. So it's going to take a couple of rows before you can really see what's going on, but you can kind of start to see it there, because you'll see we've got these nice V's here, and then we've got 3 little bumpy areas there, but there should be 2. I don't know what I did there, because we got 3V. Oh, it's just how it's going to turn out, because then I purled these 3 and I knitted those 2. So what we're going to do on this row, just to help it stand out a little bit more, is I'm going to knit the first 4. And a lot of the time when you're like doing a dishcloth or whatever, sometimes it'll say knit straight across, sometimes it'll say knit 4, and then it'll say in parentheses border stitch, and then it'll tell you to knit more. I don't know why they do that. It's just kind of up to the individual pattern writer what they want to do. So I'm getting my border stitches here. And the yarn is creeping up on me. This is just some old scrap yarn I've had for years and not really done much with. I need to get more of a lead though. Okay. Just a second. Okay, that's a more comfortable height. So I've knitted the 4 border stitches, and now we're going to knit 3, and then yarn over to purl 2, without creating any new stitches, and then put the yarn back to the back and knit the rest of the way across. I always tell people to start with dishcloths because they're quick and easy to do, and if you make a mistake it doesn't matter because it's going to get messed up when you use it to wash dishes anyway. And anytime I'm learning a new technique or a new stitch, I'll make a dishcloth with it first, because like I said, I don't expect that I'm going to get it perfect on the first try, and so if I make a mistake, nobody cares. Alright, so now we're going to knit 4, because that's the border stitch, with this pattern that I'm just making up as I go with this little swatch. Knit 4, then I'm going to purl 3. Nope, I didn't get it quite that time. I looked at the camera screen and not at the work. Another important thing is when you start a row, you need to see it through to the end. You don't ever want to put your work down and go do something else and then come back to it. Then you run the risk of not remembering which way you were going and turning your work too early. All right, yarn over to knit 2. And then purl 3. And then yarn over to knit the last 4. And do you hear the clicky noises? You won't always hear the clicky noise, but it should be your goal to try to hear it, to get it to do that every time. That's how you know that you haven't put a needle through the yarn and that you're doing it right. Alright, so now we're going to look at the right side again. And I mean, maybe this is the wrong side, but you can see that you've got a little bit of a pattern starting to emerge, just kind of a straight line there with the purl bumps on one side surrounded by the knit V's. If we look at the other side, then we've got the knit V's kind of poking out right there in the middle with the purl bumps on the sides there. So I'm going to pause it again just to finish out a little bit, and then I'll show you how to bind off everything. Okay, so now we've gotten this far. You can see there's like a tiny little pattern in there that's more visible on the other side. And so now we're ready to bind off. So what we do for this is we'll knit, we'll knit, and then we'll knit the next one. And then what we do is we take our left needle. This is the only time you work with your left needle, and well, I shouldn't say the only time, but one of the only times. And then you'll pick up the first stitch and bring it over the second stitch and pull it off the needle. So now there's only one stitch on the right needle. And then we do the same all the way across. Knit, and then pick up the first one, bring it over the second one, and let it fall. Knit one. Pick that up, bring it over, let it drop. You can see now it's starting to come loose. And we just do that all the way across until the end, and there's only one left. And when I get to that point, I'll show you what you do with that to finish the work. Okay. Last one. So now there's just this one stitch left. So what do? We'll take our sharp scissors and cut the yarn, leaving a few inches at the end there, and we'll pull that out a little bit. See, there's that last loop. We take the end of the yarn and we'll feed it through that loop and pull it tight. So there's your new cloth. Now you've got these ends here. What we do then is called weaving in the ends. So you take a tapestry needle, that's just any straight needle with a big eye that you can fit your yarn through, and you'll thread the yarn through the eye of the needle, any way you can. And then we'll take that and weave the needle through the work. It only needs to go through a few of the stitches. The idea here is that you're gonna use the work to hold the work together, and it won't unravel. So we get it through there, we pull it through, all the way, and then we trim that and pull it back, and there you go. Then you would do the same on the other side. And if you're using multiple colors, then you'll do it with all of the ends you have. You'll weave them all in so that they're not able to be seen on the outside of the work, and that they shouldn't ever come loose. I say shouldn't, but I have had some that do. I didn't do a very good job of weaving in the ends with those. And just like that, pull it through. This one was way too long. There's another thing that I like to do with the tail that I will show you in a later video, but this is the best way to do it when you're first starting out, so you don't get confused. And there we have it, a complete little cloth. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like, and I hope to do a lot more of these.